So my story starts in 2005 when I was 10 years old. I was really excited for my first trip ever on a plane out of the state, out of the country. I'd never been before. And one day my parents came to me and said, we need to talk. And they said, we're not going on the trip anymore because your mum has breast cancer. And being 10 years old, I didn't really understand what that meant for us and how it would affect my mum and our family. So what I later learned is that when people are in a lot of pain, they can act different to how they usually are. And so my mum and I were getting in a lot of fights, and I was quite upset at this time, and I didn't really feel like I had anyone I could talk to. My dad has always been supportive, but he's always been a less emotional person, so he didn't really understand the feelings and thoughts that I was going through at the time. So I would try to bottle it up during the daytime and not let anyone know that anything was wrong, but behind closed doors, I was a mess. I was depressed, I was anxious, and I felt like I was all alone. In 2015, my mum ended up passing away from breast cancer related illness, and it was at that point that my mental illness, my depression and my anxiety got very bad. My basketball journey started when I was 11. I was always an athletic kid, always really competitive, and I just enjoyed being active. And coming from a sporting family, my dad was a professional footy player. Sport was just natural to me, it was second nature. So I always played really hard, always wanted to do the best that I could growing up. And so in that, I was invited to play for the Kalamunda Suns SBL team at the time. And so I was 15 at that point in time. And I just loved playing sport because it was my thing. It was what I was good at and what I felt good doing. I was proud of myself when I was playing it, and it just came naturally to me. And so luckily when I was 18, I was invited to be a train-on player for what was called the West Coast Waves, now the Perth Lynx, when I was 18. And I did that for a year until I was 19, and I decided that I wanted to go to the USA to pursue college. So I went over to the University of Minnesota in 2015, and that's where my story takes a big turn. That's where my mental health took a big dive.
Trying to squeeze a little more out of her.
So they allow Edwards to get the basketball. These, like you said, two big free throws. They got three-point shooters all over.
Edwards hits the first one. This one to make it a three-point game. Jones and Gibran out. McCabe and Thompson in. Gophers by 2. Edwards trying to make it a three-point ball game. She does. 29 points for Jessie Edwards.
In 2015, I took the plane flight over to Minneapolis to start my college career. I was really excited, having only seen the US from TV shows and movies before. So I was lucky enough to have a family that looked after me before I moved into my student accommodation. Though when I did move into my student accommodation and I started practices, that was when everything changed for me. They were a lot more intense, both the coaches and the practices, than I was used to back home. And it was a big shock for me, to be honest. And I didn't take it very well. I didn't have a lot of healthy coping mechanisms. So having been thrown into a toxic culture where I felt like my performance was worth more to the people around me than who I was as a person, it really started to grind on me. The culmination of all of this was when my coach called me into her office one summer in the off season, and she said to me, "You're gonna have to get all your issues my panic attacks during training, my depression sorted, or we're going to have to ask you to leave the team. Now, I don't think that's legal, but it was said to me, so that was really hard for me to deal with. So my trainer, who worked with our team, had noticed that I was having all of these issues, and he suggested that I go to see the school sports psychologist. And being sick of feeling the way that I was, feeling helpless and feeling like I wasn't good enough, feeling like I was letting everyone down, I wanted a change. So I decided to go and see the sports psychologist, and I had some sessions with her. She listened to me, just let me talk, and once I'd said my piece, she started to work with me just to start to recognize the negative thoughts and the unhelpful thoughts that I was having, and give me tools to work on them. So to recognize them early, mindfulness, to stop them snowballing from something small into something really big that's unmanageable. My third and senior year in 2018, I ended up graduating from our women's basketball program 6th all-time in program blocks and 9th in offensive rebounds. And it's funny looking back on it, because at the time, my brain was telling me these things that weren't true, that I wasn't any good, that I was letting my team down. But looking back and reflecting on it after the fact, I really am proud of what I achieved while I was there, despite the struggles that I had. So once I came back to Perth, I got in touch with Outside the Locker Room with Danny, and we were talking, and she told me that she thought it would be great for me to get involved. So coming from a psychology background, I got my degree in psychology, and coming from a sports background, I thought it was a perfect fit. So I was really, really excited to become a part of it, because mental health has been a huge part of my life and my sports journey. And I really want to increase the discussion about mental health and just normalize talking about it, because it's so common. Even though I've experienced a lot of negative things, I really don't regret them. I always tell people that in a way, I'm not glad that they happened, but I suppose grateful for the opportunity that they've given me to grow stronger and grow my skills and my resilience. And they've really made me who I am as a person today. And I really, really wouldn't be myself if I hadn't been through my hardships, my mental health battles. So despite the negative things, I've come through it stronger on the other side.